Hi, I'm Vincent, and I play Vin in the Lazarus Epiphany. I'm also the co-creator, co-writer, director by technicality, editor. You get the picture. And on the other side of the camera is Neil's actor, who also plays Jackie Albrecht, and is our cameraman, co-creator, co-writer, assistant director by technicality. Again, I'm sure you get the picture. This is not a large team. In fact, it is very much the opposite of that. Say hi, Neil's actor.
Hi, Neil's actor.
That was so predictable, it looped around to being completely unpredictable. Good
Thank you.
job.
I try.
I'm never making that sound again.
I hope you don't.
So Lazarus Epiphany was actually originally two separate projects that got merged into one. The first was called The Sternest Rebuke and was based around two siblings attempting to salvage a horror podcast of sorts that they were making before the third person abruptly ditched them, and then when they finally scrap it, surprise, surprise, the monsters they created are now here, and they intend for both siblings to die. Badly.
That sucks.
Who asked for your opinion, Neil's actor?
I asked for my opinion.
Okay, well, I didn't. That side tangent aside, the main plot would have been based around them attempting to use their incomplete notes, scripts, and various bits of half-baked planning to stop monsters that were inherently based off of their unfinished plans. Think something that's like a midway point between Tiny Terrors and Alan Wake. The second one did not have a name, but was essentially if there was absolutely nothing going on in any of the recordings throughout the Lazarus Epiphany, and the real explanation had been, well, the real explanation. There were too many logistical issues with creating the Sternest Rebuke, so I unfortunately ended up having to scrap the project. But then I ended up overthinking some stuff in the plans for the second one, and a lot of over-convoluted world building that wouldn't have made it into the final project if we had gone through with it later. I decided that I was going to salvage what I could from the Sternest Rebuke and fuse the two together. Thus, the Lazarus Epiphany was born. The Lazarus Epiphany was made on a budget of $0. I'm just going to admit that. All of our props were things that we had beforehand. All of our filming locations were within driving distance, albeit some to a farther degree than others. I don't think that's a sentence, but anyway. And everything was recorded on the same Android cell phone, which is also what's being used to record this right now. And we have no tripod or anything. It's on a music stand. Does this strike home the sheer non-existence of the budget that all of this is being produced on? Season 2 is theoretically going to have a bit of a bigger budget, by which I mean I theoretically hope we will have a budget at all, but we're not going for something that's flashy and over-dramatic, you know? We don't want to create something that uses spectacle and shock value to distract you from the fact that there's zero plot and all of the characters are one-dimensional. That is not what we want here. We're more focused on building up characters who are believable and flawed but likable, and then shoving them face first into a metaphorical wood chipper at Mach 7. Wait, I don't remember what Mach means. Like Vin says in the last episode of Season 1, you think that, like, the headaches and the stalking and the memory loss and shit are bad. That's not even the tip of the iceberg. That's the molecule at the top of the iceberg. Neither of these two are going to be okay, is what I'm saying. I'm just hoping that you'll be sad about it, because I'm sure not. Season 1 was mainly based on character development and foreshadowing rather than just jumping right into the action, which I'll admit might have bored some, but I think it was the right choice for the story we're trying to tell. Admittedly, there's several parts of Season 1 that probably look like filler episodes on first glance, but setting aside the flagrant misuse of that term to discuss another time, by which I mean never, hopefully. Anyway, just because there's less happening there doesn't mean that we're not setting anything up. One of the rules that was set up from very early on was that every episode needs to be relevant. Specifically, it needs to have at least one, but preferably 2 or even 3 of the following: vital characterization, set up some sort of world-building element, or telegraph a future plot point. I'd say about 80% of all episodes in Season 1 managed to do all 3 now that I'm thinking about it. We will be trying to stick to that rule going into future seasons of the Lazarus Epiphany, but since there's going to be more happening than just Neil watching a bunch of recordings that he doesn't remember happening, it won't have to be as strict of a rule, But it's about principle by this point, you know? Still, I can promise that there will be no pointless episodes, no matter what it might look like in the moment. Everything is relevant. Speaking of relevance, let's talk about Jackie Albrecht. Creating a second channel with no obvious link to the main one was always going to be a bit of a gamble in terms of making sure that people, knew it existed, especially considering what a late addition Jackie was to the story. I came up with the concept for Jackie right after we'd finished filming for the first several episodes, realized that it would help set up the main conflict of Season 2 a lot better and make it feel less impersonal, spent a couple sleepless nights figuring out how to seamlessly integrate it the best, and it went off without a hitch. Somehow, I can promise that Jackie won't be taking anywhere near as much of a backseat when it comes to Season 2. I'm really excited to show off what we've got planned there. Vin and Neil were primarily derived from the protagonists of The Sternest Rebuke, though their names there were Vincent and Lionel. Vin has probably undergone the least changes from their TSR iteration, the main difference is being more trauma and, well... something else that I'm not going to be spoiling before we get there in the next season. They're definitely both the more flawed and the more tragic of the two Sherman siblings, and I'm really excited to show off what's in store for them. Here's a hint, mainly trauma. On the other hand, Neil is practically the opposite of Lionel, who would have been the straight man of the sibling dynamic, but also a lot more cunning, manipulative, and self-serving than Neil's really got the capacity for. Neil's actor was essentially given complete creative control over where to go with his character. I told him to go crazy, and, well...
No.
Don't sniff your phone.
I had some Coke left over on that.
He took that seriously, and so Neil was transformed into the impulsive, chaotic, unreliable narrator that he is now. Overall, Season 1 turned out a lot better than I expected, especially considering how rusty my editing skills are. Season 2 will be starting fairly soon, so if you haven't seen Season 1 yet and you want to, I will be putting a link in the description. See y'all in a week or two.